Lupus LA would like to thank our generous sponsors for their support of the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals is focused on managing complexity and improving lives. Their work in the autoimmune space is critical to finding new and innovative treatments for lupus. Emerge Business Solutions serves as a personal and professional CFO for clients across a wide spectrum of industries. They handle financial affairs with integrity and transparency. Lupus LA is proud to work hand in hand with Emerge to manage all of its financial needs. Gemini Beauty believes in beauty for a cause, and in their case, the cause is lupus, creating products to specifically address the needs of lupus patients, but with broad appeal across all skin types. The team at Gemini is changing the skincare game for good. Find the gem in you. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, and as always, I want to thank our sponsors for their incredible support of the podcast. Joining me today is Fatema Siddiki. Fatema, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a really impressive story, and I think we're going to be talking a lot about art today and creativity and art as a healing mechanism. But why don't we start at the beginning? Why don't you tell me? I know you were diagnosed in your teens, and yes. So tell me, where were you in your life when you were diagnosed, and what was the experience like?
So I got sick when I was 16 years old, and the doctors didn't know what was happening, and it was quite unknown to have an autoimmune condition, right? It was like not in our books that time, and it was just on and off fatigue issues and skin issues, which was quite happening, and I was losing a lot of weight and all of that. So uh, the symptoms did started, but the doctors were not fully recognizing that, okay, what is actually happening, which is wrong. And then a year later, they found out that I have lupus and scleroderma, and the systematic type. And then my whole world turned upside down, apparently. So yeah, which was not a good thing. But I feel like now, from 2007 till 2022, life has changed miraculously well. So yeah.
That, which is great. I'm so happy to hear that positive approach. Where were you in the world? Where were you living at the time when you were diagnosed?
I was in my home country, Pakistan. Yeah, at that time, I was finishing my school and I was planning for further studies and, all of those stuff when you are 16 and 17-year old. You're thinking what to do next, what to be, and who to be, finding my own identity. And at that time, I was focused on becoming a doctor. I was like, okay, I'm going to go into the medical field. I'm going to become a doctor. And somehow that did not happen. But I feel like years later, I feel like it was a blessing in disguise.
Mm-hmm. Because you really think the diagnosis altered your life in such a way that it helped you find what was really underneath there.
Yeah, it did definitely, because all of my life, I always wanted to be an artist. I always wanted to just incorporate art in my own world and do something about it. But I felt like at that time, it was like you need to have a professional set of careers, like either an MBA or a doctor or a lawyer, especially if you come from a South Asia country. So because it was, again, I would say, a blessing in disguise, because it brought me to who I am, who I wanted to be when I was 5-year-old kid as well. So having lupus, going through a lot of chronic pain, a lot of setbacks in my life, still I'm very happy to say that still I obviously I deal with the disease issue till now, but still I feel content in my life, because I feel like I have found my purpose, where I'm actually talking about, okay, what is lupus, advocating about it, right? And at the same time, inspiring people through making art.
That's amazing. So how quickly did the transition of your life happen? Was it sort of And did you get the lupus and scleroderma diagnoses at the same time?
At the same time, yes.
Really? And so, and does either one or the other of the disease sort of take over in terms of which requires more attention, which requires more treatment, that kind of thing? Or
I feel
is it sort
like
of,
I feel like when I was diagnosed, when it started, scleroderma was like on the higher level. Like it was affecting my skin. My skin was getting tighter and tighter. But at the same time, lupus came into action as well. And in 2009, my kidneys were badly affected, and I had to be hospitalized for a month. And they were like giving me highly steroids and all and everything in order to save my kidneys back then. So, like from 2009, they were like kind of overlapping. So even
mhm.
doctors were like, they weren't treating like scleroderma and lupus like separately, they were treating it together.
And what was the sort of level of awareness in Pakistan at the time of the
Not
autoimmune
that
conditions? Because I
much.
know, because you spent time in the States as well, right? Did you
Yes.
go back and forth?
So in from 2014, I moved to the States, but before that, I was in Pakistan.
So when you were being diagnosed, were there American doctors involved too, or it was all really through
They were,
Pakistan?
yes, they were. Yeah, no. So my rheumatologist, he is from a school in the US. So he always used to go for conferences. So he always used to take my own particular case back to the States and just like have a conversation. Okay, like this is happening to her. What should we do next and all? So in a way, like they were intertwined. And but at that time, I noticed like there were not so much diagnosis of lupus and scleroderma in Pakistan because like it's a typical disease which is found in the west, right, not in the east.
Hmm.
So it was just like fairly new, and people were not even okay to talk about it because they were like, okay, we don't know if like this something exists because it is invisible. Like the chronic pain or anything which I'm suffering, it's inside, or the fatigue, the chronic fatigue where I'm not able to go out and about with my friends. So sometimes I feel like the people used to assume that I'm lying to get out of plans when I was just sick and that's it. So, but now I feel like people are more educated, like people are more advocating, and now in like in the South Asia countries, there are many women who are dealing with lupus as well. So now, like I because I just like talk to them, just like support and just like let them know my own journey if they're fairly like newly diagnosed. So it helps them see like a light at the end of the tunnel. That okay, it's not the end of the world. We can figure it out and all. And I feel like also with the right doctors and the like at the right time getting diagnosed, also I feel like very important, which is having the right support system besides you.
Hmm.
Because I
Hmm.
feel like if your support system is not able to understand what you're going through, then it would be very difficult to deal with this disease, the condition, because yeah, it doesn't go away, right? It's like it can go into remission, but it will not leave you entirely. So I was blessed in a way that I have a very supportive family, and they're always encouraging me to do more and more in my life. And they never like they always made me understand that okay, you have a disease or you have a condition, which doesn't mean you're going to stop living your life.
Hmm. And did that occur right away? I mean, that your parents and your family were supportive right away. Because
Yes,
it's
my immediate
yesterday.
family, yeah, they were right there.
Yeah, I think just in telling so many of these stories, you do realize what a significant difference. And I don't think the family always understands how much of an impact they make, and how I think I'm hoping this podcast too not only speaks to just lupus patients, but also their family members, and to educate them on how critical their support can really be. And it's in small ways, gives you, I'm assuming their support gave you sort of the permission you needed to free yourself from the doctor route,
Yeah,
into being the 5-year old, taking that 5-year old girl's dream and turning it into a reality.
definitely, definitely. And especially I would say like my mom, she is my source of inspiration. She's the one who always pushes me to do better in life. So it's just like having that support constantly just gives me the drive that even if I'm not feeling up to my mark, still I am doing something which is progressing my life in a positive manner.
So tell me a little bit about what led you to being, how did you follow that path? What did you do when you said, okay, I'm not going to follow the medical path anymore. I'm going to be an artist. Was that an immediate decision? Was that a little bit of over time? How did that come to be?
It was, so honestly, it was not immediate because when I was diagnosed and then I saw a doctor, I don't know if he was a doctor or not. I don't uh, understand his credentials now because he was like, okay, there's no cure. And so he gave me like a death sentence that, okay, you have like 2 years to live and then it's like, bye bye. And so obviously, like as a 17-year-old, my life changed and I was like, okay, so what is the purpose of living, right? What is the purpose of making plans or even getting better? Because I'm like, okay, if I'm taking medication, obviously, subconsciously, I am thinking I will feel better after these. But if someone is coming to you and he is saying, okay, like there is like 2 years, so obviously I was just like giving up. So in that time, I went into like severe depression because of that thought, and it changed my entire outlook of life because I'm like, okay, I'm going to die. So at that time, my mom actually forced me back to my painting because I stopped painting when I was like 14 years old because I was like, okay, I will be doing something in the medical field. So why waste time being an artist right now, right? So, but she actually got piece of canvas and paints and brushes and she left that in my room. And eventually I started to paint. So now I realize like what I was painting back then, it was only my emotions. Like my palette used to be like dark and red and it used to be like very depressive. If someone is watching, seeing how I'm creating art, they're like, okay, something is terribly going wrong in your mind right now. So, but in a
Mm-hmm.
way, it became therapeutic for me. So I started to paint, and in 2 years, I started to like, acknowledge that okay, fine, I have lupus, like I have these diseases, but it doesn't mean that my life is going to just end here. It's going to stop here. I can find like more greater and wider opportunities in the world. So that thought made me focus that okay, fine, if like it helped me change my mindset, though I was very, very, very sick at that time. I used to be like in the ER 2 to 3 times a week because of the severe chronic pain. It was like, and even like the doctors, like the ER doctors, they were just helping me, but it was just like no one was understanding that okay, where is the pain coming from? Excruciating pain. So that was going on the side, but I feel like getting back to my art and just like focusing and just letting all of those angst and anxiety and frustration out on like having an outlet and a healthy outlet actually helped me see greater and wider opportunities. So it made me accept that okay, fine, I have the like after like going through the like Kubler five stages of grief, right? I
Right.
was like, okay, fine, let's do another thing. Yeah. So I was okay, let's just live life now. So I decided that okay, I have the disease, but I will move on now. So that mindset actually changed me, and then it made me control my own life like I was doing before the diagnosis as well. And I feel like now I'm doing it much better because constantly I am focusing on a positive mindset, not like the toxic positive mindset, because there's sometimes when obviously I'm a human being, right? So there are times when I'm just like very sad, I'm depressed, I'm just like thinking of all of the negative things that I can think of, but I process all of those and then I step back from it. I'm like, okay, let's just like take a day or two, cry it out, talk to your friends, do something about it, and then come into that non-giving up mindset. Is like, okay, we are still fighting. We're still being a strong person today. So yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. The strength you have is incredible, and I want to take a quick break, and then I want to talk about sort of where your art is now and all of this positivity and how you're sharing that
Definitely.
with the world. So we will be right back with more after this.
Lupus LA's fellowship program is an essential part of ensuring the training of future rheumatologists. The nation is experiencing a serious shortage of pediatric rheumatologists. Today, there are approximately 300,000 children diagnosed with rheumatic conditions in the United States, but only about 250 practicing pediatric rheumatologists to meet this tremendous need. Call 310-657-5667 or visit our website at lupusla.org to support the efforts of Lupus LA.
Welcome back to the Lupus LA Your Story, Our Fight podcast. We're talking to Fatema Siddiki today, and we're talking about art and healing. And let me ask you this. When you were painting, when you got the paintbrush back in your hand, do you think that changed your physical symptoms as well as your outlook? Did it actually help you heal physically as well as emotionally?
I think so. Like, I feel like I was focusing until now. Firstly, it's a very good question. I have never even thought about it because I always focus that it has helped me emotionally, not physically, right? But I am thinking and I'm realizing that yes, it actually helped me physically as well because in 2011, so I got like I don't know what was it, but it was like a severe attack on my right arm, which made me lose like motion in my like these three fingers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even able to just like open them up. And I'm like now I'm like working from both hands, but I feel like constantly painting and just like making my hand just like constantly in that movement situation, it has helped me keep my right hand mobile as well. And apparently whenever like I go see my doctors, they always say like my right hand strength is stronger than my left hand. So even they feel that okay, like that's not supposed to happen because generally it doesn't. But I feel like due to just like constant movement and not giving up, because I'm okay with that. Like I don't mind telling people that okay, like my three fingers are very stiff, I can't open them. I don't feel like disappointed. I don't feel like okay, something is missing in my life. Instead, it has added to it because now I'm a lefty as well. So I'm like working with both of my hands at a constant time. So it saves me time as well. So it's just like there's nothing lost here.
Right. Your attitude is one of the most impressive that I have seen. And
Thank
I
you.
tell me how, well, first of all, what gave you the idea to share that with the world? You know, what was the impetus for not sort of being selfish and keeping it to yourself and using it as your own tool? What made you want to bring it to others?
So I always felt that I wanted to do something of my own. I didn't know what it was, but I always, because so my dad is a business owner, so I've always seen him like running around things and just like being his own boss, and no one is telling him to do things. Instead, he is telling people to do things, right? So it always like I don't know, he was always my inspiration. So even though when I was even decided to become a doctor, I used to look up to him because I'm like, okay, I would enjoy living what he does because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I think I can have I can I think I can lead people, or I think because I have like this control and organized nature, I was like I can help people what to do in their life. But at that time I was like what 13, 14 years old. And then when I was back in LA, I was actually working for a startup as a creative strategist. So I was happy. I wasn't feeling like, okay, like I want to do something more. I was happy, but I was not content. I was like, okay, still, I'm not just like satisfied in what I am doing, though I love what I'm doing. I love to create things like graphic animation, and it's like starting a company, helping people, like helping other people start their own companies. And then
Mm-hmm.
COVID happened, and then COVID happened. So that made me like reevaluate everything in my life. And then a friend of mine, and then she calls me up, which is a very funny story. So this is how my company started. She calls me up and she is like, can you teach me how to paint? And I'm like, sure, but we are not in the same country because I was in California and she's in Denmark. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
let's hop on a FaceTime, let's do a video call and just teach me how to paint. And I'm like, sounds good. We hop on the internet, we are just like I'm teaching her do this, do that, right? And then she's like, oh, it is like it's she's like it is helping me feel better. this was the thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. It is helping you feel better? Seriously? She's like, yeah, Fatma. That how my business started. I was like, okay, I want to do this, but on a, like a larger and a bigger scale where I'm actually helping people. So I already had like my art page. I changed that to like therapy art, which is my brand name. I changed it to that, and I was like, okay, we paint emotions, and that's it. So that's why I always tell people, because people think that I'm an art therapist. I'm like, no, I'm not an art therapist. I'm an abstract artist who is just teaching others what she has learned, what she has dealt with, and how she came over the chaos in her own life. So that's the only thing. So in the entire 2020, I was giving entirely free workshops for 2 hours. So the workshops used to be free for 2 hours, like 90 minutes or so, and I was getting people across the globe. So I was getting people from the States, from Turkey, from Dubai, from India, from Pakistan. And it used to be so nice, like having like 100 and 150 people all over Zoom. I'm telling them what to paint, just sitting, and everyone is just painting. Which became, it was like, okay, this is beautiful. This is actually beautiful. And then I obviously I enhanced more programs, and now I do in-person workshops as well. And it just helps everyone. And I'm like, for me personally, I want to change the narrative that no, like only certain people can create something. I'm like, no, everyone can create something, anything they want to. It's just like we need them to tap into it. So I just help them tap into their own creativity. That's the only thing that I'm doing, nothing else. And that's it.
And how many of the people? I mean, it's amazing that you have so many people on these classes on a regular basis. And do you get to hear any of their stories? Do you get to hear any of
I do.
what they're looking for and how they're healing?
So when I started it, I was very just like, yeah, I was just confused whether to share my own story, but I wanted to do because obviously it helped me to the person I am today, right? So I did that. So once I did that, so few people started to share their own stories. They were like, okay, Fatma, we are dealing with this medical condition which doesn't let us go from our house because we can't be mobile. We have to be at home. We need to be very cautious. And then there's certain people dealing with just like other type of struggles, other type of chaotic issues which are not related to health. So I realized at the end of the day, in my first workshop even, I was like, wait, everyone has a certain chaos in life. It doesn't matter if they have a health condition or not. It can be monetary, it can be a relationship, anything. It's just like everyone is some sort of chaos in their life. So that is why,
Mm-hmm.
just like for me, for me, what I do is extremely important because I want to tell them that, okay, even for 2 hours or so, just like let's shut off the world around us and let's just focus on the feelings that we're feeling, and just like let's have a healthy outlet of it where actually you are painting, and then either you can hang up on your wall or you can even tear it apart, however you want to process it. So by this, and then also always wanted to teach people about what abstract art is. So I include the two of them. So I teach them the techniques and the tips and all, but every painting is different because I am not telling them what to paint. They're just feeling the process entirely. They're feeling the colors, they're feeling the emotion, and then they're painting those.
Hmm. Have you met any lupus patients through your work,
I have
or
couple
scleroderma
of them.
patients, or yeah?
Couple of them. In
And
Pakistan, I did. Yeah, I mean, they attended my in-person workshops, and those people were just like sitting and painting. Nothing
mhm.
more, nothing less. They were like, "This is so healing." That's the only thing that they told me. They were like, "This is so healing right now."
Hmm. I have a kindergartner and a preschool, so I do a little bit of painting. It would definitely be considered abstract, but it is it's a fun activity to do just with my kids. Um, and it's very freeing, and it brings you back to that childhood. I think that's one of the
Exactly.
things that I
That's
think
one of
is
the
so
things.
helpful, and really in a lupus patient or in a chronically ill person, bringing you back to that childhood, that pre-illness part of your life, I think really
Yeah.
can help almost retrain your brain a little bit.
It does. It definitely does. Because I feel like by constantly painting and just like coming into that community where I'm hearing other people's story, it's just I'm not focused on mine anymore. I'm not focusing on like, okay, it's like me, myself, and I. Now I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, how can I help you? So now
Hmm.
my inner dialogue has been changed entirely. Now I'm like, even like when I'm having like one of the low days, because lupus can just like attack you from anywhere. I'm just like, okay, it's okay to rest a day, and then tomorrow we can just like come back to our feet again, because now I'm just like just focused on just like advocating, helping, and inspiring other individuals of our community. And I feel like in a way that helps me feel better as well. I don't know how that works, but it helps me strengthen my own mind and look at the world in a better place as well. Even though there's too much chaos going on, still it makes me feel like, okay, there's a positivity in the world as well, there's compassion in the world as well.
Terrific. What's next for your company?
My next is I am traveling back to California, so that's a very good thing. Yeah, I'm traveling back, and I will be conducting workshops in the US, which was my to-do list for 2022. But it's just like enhance more, go to different countries, meet people, right? Go to foundations, tell just like just share the story that I've been through, because I just feel like we just will, especially people who are dealing with chronic condition, we just need even like a 1% of hope. And if we are just like holding it on, we can do so many things in this life. We just like need to
Fantastic.
change the perspective of it, because I feel like as a person, even for the last like since I was diagnosed, and even I guess like till 2016, I was just focused on lupus. I was like, okay, I have lupus, I have scleroderma. I was just like focused like, okay, how that condition is controlling me. I was just like looking at the negative of my life. But then slowly and gradually, I started to look at the positive sides as well. I was like, okay, even though I am sick, but I can do this, I can do that. So once looking into those, my conversations changed, and then my thought process changed, and eventually my mindset even changed. So now, like for me, lupus is in the back burner. It is okay. It is. It does. It's not bothering me. I'm not bothering it. This like this is how we have settled our life. You're like, okay, this is how we're gonna continue our life now.
That's you're filled with really great advice, I think, for people, and I think we should get you to do a Lupus LA art, one of your seminars for us. I think that would be. I know our
Definitely,
audience would appreciate that, and so I think we should arrange that for sure.
definitely.
And
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your story. And really, I would call them words of wisdom, because you really, I think
Thank
people should
you.
really listen to this podcast and go back. I would actually encourage people to listen to it twice, because I think there's so much in there. It's just in terms of really getting your mind in the right place to battle these chronic illnesses. So,
Yes.
Fatema, thank you so much for joining the podcast, and
Thank you
safe
so much,
travels to the
Adam.
U.S.
Yes, definitely. I will be seeing all of you.
On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.